Hi, Mrs. McTaggart here. In this video we're looking at solving two-step equations using the balancing method. Now remember, there are other methods for solving equations, so if this isn't the method you've been shown in school, you might want to try it as an alternative or look for a video that maybe uses the other method. But I talk about balancing and use old-fashioned scales. Now before we start this, you should already be familiar with solving equations like x plus 4 equals 10 or 2x equals 5. They were in my previous video called Solving Basic Equations. These ones are going to involve two steps. These are probably more third level if we're looking at what level we're at. And they are the foundation to all your harder equations before we start putting in fractions and brackets and things. So two-step equations because there's two steps to it. Now, step one on these is dealing with the number part. Step two is always a divide to get the letter on its own. So remember, your goal in any equation in maths is to eliminate everything around the letter and just find m on its own. Now, you have to do these algebraically using the method of equations. You can't just look at this and say, oh, I think the answer's 6, because you've sat and played around and worked it out. So what we see a lot of times in maths is for this first one is people write 3 times 6 plus 1 equals 19. Now, if that does work, and they have worked out the answer is 6, but if you were in a maths test, this is a big no-no, big red flags. You have to follow the method you're shown. Equations always work down the way, and there's two steps to these, so there should be 2 lines of working, and there would be a mark for each one. So please don't do that and just write the answer. But it's good to know sometimes that you can work it out without, just for the case of checking your answer. Now, I use the balancing method where whatever you do to one side, you have to do the exact same to the other. So the first thing we have to do is we have to deal with the plus 1. So to eliminate the plus 1, we have to subtract 1 from this side. And because we've taken 1 off there, we also have to take 1 off the other side. So doing that step leaves you with 3m equals 18. And then at that point, we look at it and say, right, we need to find what 3 is. This says 3 times something is 18. So it's actually not too bad to sometimes just write m equals 6. But essentially what we're doing is we're dividing that side by 3 to get m on its own. We're dividing this side by 3 to get the number. And your final answer is m equals 6. So the bits in the black pen are what we are looking for. We're looking for those bits of working to get you the full marks in the test. My blue pen is also working. It's the balancing method. Some pupils like to do that to keep themselves on track. Some pupils will start to skip that bit, which is frowned upon. But hey, if you have sussed it and you get really good at equations, it might be that you don't always have to write that little bit. Okay, question 2. So again, we've got a plus 5 here, so we want to get rid of that plus 5. The way to do that is to subtract 5 from each side. So we write minus 5 under each bit. Then that leaves us with 2g, the 5's disappear, and you're left with 11 take away 5, which is 6. Now, 2 times what is 6? So we have to divide each side by 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So g is the number 3. This is your layout, okay? But let's look at some of the way in it now. So again, we're always doing opposites to get rid of things. So if we've got a minus 2, to get that to disappear, you need to get that back to 0. So you need to add 2 this time. And if you're adding 2 to the left, you have to also add 2 to the right, which gives us 8y equals 24. And then we are dividing by the 8 to get the y on its own, because that says 8 times y, and the opposite of times in is dividing. So we're left with y equals 3 for that one. On the second one, again, we've got a minus 3 here, so we're going to do the opposite. We're going to add 3 because that would make that 0 and disappear, which gives you 6p equals 30. And then we are going to divide by the 6, and that gives us p equals 5. So 2 steps, and some people really enjoy these and like doing them, and you are essentially just adding, subtracting and dividing for these. But again, remember, this is the bottom line of equations. I'm thinking ahead to 4th and 5th year, even 6th year advanced higher. This is like the last 2 steps of a very, very complicated equation. So if you can suss this just now, you'll do really well in future. So these have all given us nice answers. So let's look at a couple with some negative numbers or not whole number answers. So on this one here, we have 8f plus 18 equals 2. So we need to get rid of the plus 18 by subtracting it on the left, subtracting it on the right. And that gives us 2 take away 18 is minus 16. Now, if you haven't done negative numbers or integers yet, you might want to ignore this one, but probably you have done because we know it comes into algebra, so it naturally maybe comes ahead of equations. And then we're left with 8 times something is minus 16. So we're doing our usual, we're going to divide both sides by 8. I've used 8 quite a lot in this video. And that leaves us with f equals, well, 16 divided by 8 would just be 2, but we've got one positive, one negative, and if you have one negative and one positive in a division sum, negative always wins, so you get f equals negative 2. And on this one, we're going to do the same again. To counteract the minus 8, the minus 6, we're going to add 6 to each side, which gives us 2k equals 29. Now, first thing to do is just double check you've done something right, because when they don't divide nicely, it's always worth checking to see if you maybe done a wee mistake with your add or take away, but sometimes it doesn't divide nicely. So your step here is to still just divide by 2. Now, dividing by 2 is quite an easy one to do. You could just turn this into a decimal, or your foolproof plan is to always write it as 29 over 2. Now, that does not simplify at all, so that's your final answer. But we will also accept you actually dividing by 2 and getting either 14.5 or 14 and 1/2. All three of these would be adequate answers. I like it as a fraction though. Now, I have shown you every eventuality here. This is a point where if you want to try some on your own, you can pause the video and try from there. The negative numbers and the not nice ones start to come in about here at the j mark. So if you want to just test yourself on the harder ones, you might want to start at j. And then if you unpause the video, the answers will magically appear like that. So there are your answers. I hope this has helped and I hope you've understood it. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.